All right, happy Monday, everybody. So, we're going to be learning about Keith Haring, and he is a New York artist. He was popular in the 80s and 90s. He is known as a street artist, so he would do a lot of his artwork on subway stations, and his artwork often indicates movement or emotion through lines. And this is a picture of Keith Haring right here in the yellow t-shirt. That is a piece of his art on his shirt called the Brilliant Baby or the Brilliant Child. And he used a lot of these effects with the lines to show motion and movement in his artwork. His art is often very positive, very happy. There's a lot of hearts and hugging characters. And if you feel like the only thing you can draw is a stick figure, that's okay. That's what Keith Haring drew. It's a lot of stick figures. So you're still considered an artist even if you just do stick figures. Okay, so here's some more examples of Keith Haring. He likes to work large. Here's a mural he did. You can see those lines indicating movement. All of his characters, all of his stick figures are not just normal boring stick figures. They're all their joints are doing different things. They're all different proportions. We also have another piece of art where he has his werewolves and his dogs being abducted by aliens. And you can see the red lines are showing motion. These characters don't have facial features, but you can still feel what they're feeling. So it's kind of the opposite of what we did last week with the large-eyed children with Margaret Keane. So she showed emotion through the facial features, and Keith Haring shows emotion through the body language. So that's kind of our subject today. Here is some photographs of Keith Haring doing his street art. This is a subway station. Subway stations are underneath New York, and they usually have this tile and movie posters. And he noticed a lot of the posters and propaganda seen on the subway were about consuming and like about money. So some of his art was talking about that. Here's another picture. There's the radiant child. There's a radiant baby again. He has reoccurring kind of themes. But he would do this at night because he didn't want to get caught. And here's another piece of his work. He has reoccurring characters. Look at all these lines. He's using the whole page. There's hardly any negative space. And if you look close enough, you can see the werewolves. You can see the dogs. He would use paint markers. So if you've ever used a paint marker, that's how he got this effect. Here's another one. This is kind of what we're going to be mimicking today. He liked the color yellow. A lot of his artwork depicts yellow in primary colors, which also conveys the feeling of happiness or childlike artwork. And you see those dashes on the bottom where that horizon line is. We're going to be doing that too. Here's another one. Stick figures are all doing different things. There's a border. There's a nice little frame around it. We see that traditional yellow dashes on the ground. I think this one he used spray paint. And there is an event in the 80s called Luna Luna. And Luna Luna was a very unique art experience. And I have a video we're going to watch. There's actually two videos. I didn't have time to show both, but if your teacher goes into our chat, you can download the link to this PowerPoint, and also there's a YouTube link to a different video about Luna Luna. And this was done in Germany, and they had different artists come, and they did a whole fair with all the artwork. So this one's Keith Haring's. You can tell he really likes yellow. That's the primary color they're using. And then this is the video, so I'm going to go ahead and play that, so make sure your volume is on. It's not a very long video. There's a longer video for 4 minutes. We're not going to play that one. We're just going to play this one. Um, I'll tell you more in a bit. So, I got to go to Luna Luna. Um, oh, let's not listen to that again. Sorry, guys. I got to go to Luna Luna. This was in LA. Luna Luna is basically Drake, the rapper, funded to have all these shipping containers brought to him from Texas, and he curated this art exhibit. And it was lost for over 35 years, and it had all these famous artists. A lot of the artists have passed away since then. So it's really cool being able to like physically see. You couldn't ride any of the rides, but it was a really fun, and I recommend watching the other video I put in the chat. Alright, so today we're going to be doing one of the traditional Keith Haring stick figures. He never had his stick figures just standing straight up and down, okay? There's always movement. So if you've ever seen a comic book or a cartoon, when you want to show a baseball being hit, you add movement lines. If there's a bang or a shot, you show it with movement lines. A rocket ship going off, or maybe a paper airplane or a bee, you put little dashes and lines. So he always had movement lines. So we're going to be doing a dancing Keith Haring. So here are some examples that we're going to be doing today. You notice that the yellow with the dashes. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick warm-up. We need a pencil and a piece of scrap paper. So go ahead and find scrap paper and a pencil. And you're going to be doing a direct draw with Miss C. And then your very last stick figure, I'll allow you to do your own sort of composition. So we're just going to start in the corner here. And we're going to do circle. About a quarter size, about as big as a quarter. And we're just going to practice doing a stick figure. Okay? But this stick figure has to have 3 joints. Okay? Because all of Keith Haring's artwork has 3 joints. We got 1, 2, and 3. And then we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay? We need to add that. So go ahead, circle line, and then we're going to do an upside down V. Upside down V. And that's 1. Then we need to have 2 and 3. Okay? You don't have to number this. We just have to make sure we have that many joints. Okay? And then we're going to do our shoulders, which is 1. Forearm, which is 2, and hand, which is 3. And you can do those in different kind of directions. You don't have to have them in the same direction. And after you have this sort of skeleton, you're going to start here, and you're going to go ahead and flesh out or trace your skeleton. So everyone should be drawing with Miss C. This is more of a direct draw warm-up. I don't know if I'm going to be doing warm-ups too much anymore, depending on what project. I just feel like this one is very valuable because I want the students to kind of make a composition of what they want their stick figure to look like. So there's one, and we're going to do one more together. And we're going to do more of like a wiggly body for the next one. So we're going to do something that kind of looks like this, where the torso is making this S shape. So you're going to go ahead and put another quarter-sized head. And this time, you're just going to go and make a wiggly body. And I'm going to put one leg going that way and one leg straight out. And then one down, one like that. And maybe I'll have this one come in and like that. There should be 1, 2, and 3. You go down with the knee joint, you come down to the ankle joint and out. The thigh joint to the knee, to the ankle, and to the foot. And then we can do something with the shoulders like this. And we can have the arm come up like this, like that. Maybe you can have this one the opposite direction, like that. Then we have to clothe our skeleton. And you're going to start at the neck, okay? And you want to have them, you don't want to have them too thin. You're not tracing that close. See how close? That's too close. You're going to give them some meat, some muscle, kind of like a chunky stick figure. And you're just going to go ahead and trace that all the way around till you meet back at the neck. And we want to think round, okay? Rounded. And maybe you can go ahead and trace around the head too. So our next step is we have to erase the bones and leave more of something that looks kind of like this, okay? So we're just going to erase all the lines. So whenever you guys are done with that, you're just going to come ahead and erase this line because we want that circle to be attached to the body. Just take your time, erase all the lines. Erasing the skeleton. And after you do that, I'm going to give you a few minutes and you're going to compose your own stick figure. You can make them in any kind of shape, any kind of form you like, okay? So we should all have room to do something like a few down here. So go ahead and draw your own stick figure. You can kind of practice. Maybe you want one that kind of doing a ballerina pose. Or maybe you want one that is off to the side. Doing some weird stuff with his arm. Kind of practice on your own. Do what kind of figure you want, or you can practice this one again. I'm going to give you about a minute to do that. And then we'll move on to our final art project. So Miss C just assumed you all had these kind of markers with a tip that looks like this. But I was informed that some of you don't have markers like this, Crayola markers, and you have more of like an edged or cut marker. So you might have to do our technique for coloring in a little bit different. Okay, so we should all be done with kind of practicing, tracing, and figuring out what kind of position we want our stick figure in. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our final piece of work. So we need a clean piece of paper. And I'm going to go over the steps really fast, okay? So, step 1, we're going to make a pencil mark frame. So we're going to do a frame like we saw in some of Keith Haring's work. We're going to go ahead and sketch a figure with a large head. And we want limbs, okay? We want 1, 2, and 3 limbs. This is not what we want. We do not want a little arm and 2 little legs, okay? We want feet and hands. After that, you trace around the sketched figure, like we did earlier, putting on some skin or clothes. Then we're going to erase the internal skeleton, so we have this kind of figure. And after that, we're going to trace everything with a black marker or Sharpie. So you use a black marker or Sharpie. And you're going to add a horizon line or horizontal line and make dashes. And the only rule with the colors are that we have to make the floor yellow. So, I think I mentioned this last week. Artists always use their hands to measure. So if you bend your thumb like that, so this is your thumb straight, this is your thumb bent, that's about 1 inch. And we want our frame to be about 1 inch away from the border of our paper. What I do not want a tiny little frame in the middle of a page. That is too small, okay? We need to only be 1 inch away from our paper, okay? Something like this is okay. Okay, we need a larger one. So go ahead, and you can just start in one corner, and you're going to just make some wavy curved lines about 1 inch away from the edge of your paper. And if you have a smaller piece of paper, like a half sheet, that's okay. You're still going to do the same thing. Okay. So we should have something like that. And after we have our frame, we need to go ahead and sketch the figure with a large head. I'm thinking like cutie size, tangerine size. I forget, you've all had tangerines sized head. So I want you to make a head that's about the size of a cutie tangerine. Bigger than a quarter, so bigger than what we were doing earlier. Not as big as an apple, not as big as an orange, but like a tangerine, okay? The size of a tangerine. And then you have decisions to make after you make your tangerine-sized head. It's about 2 to 3 inches big. So use your finger, make sure it's 2 to 3 inches large. And then we have to decide if we want a body that goes straight up and down, if we want a body that goes diagonal, or if we want a body that kind of curves. So we have to make some decisions. Decisions. You do not have to do exactly what Miss C does, but you can follow along. And I think I'm going to do a curved body. So if you don't like the look of the curved body, you can go ahead and do the straight body or ones going off diagonally. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do 2 little curves like that. I want to leave plenty of room for my legs. If you go too far, just go ahead and erase it. So we should have a circle and the torso. Your torso can be straight up and down, diagonal, or curved like Miss C's. Make sure there's plenty of room at the bottom, at least 1, 2, 3, at least 3 inches, 1, 2, and 3. Think of like an upside down V. So make a V. And I'm going to have one leg going straight up and down, and then a foot. And then this one I'm going to have come in and out like that. kind of showing that he's dancing. You can put the leg up higher or higher. I could have done the leg kind of like this if I wanted. It's up to you. So we should have 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3 joints and 3 lines. The hip joint, the knee joint, and the ankle joint. And that's where you get to decide at each joint what direction that line will go. After that, we're going to move to our shoulders. You can have your shoulders straight, or you can have them at a diagonal. And I'm going to kind of give mine a diagonal. I'm going to go ahead to go diagonal. His arms are way too short right now, so I got to go ahead and give him his forearm and his hand, his forearm and his hand. And I'm going to kind of have him doing this swaying motion. Maybe he's pretending to be a windshield wiper on a car. I like to think of this art project as them at like a disco party. Okay, now we need to add our black lines. We are going to add the horizon line and the dashes and the everything else later. We're going to do that with our marker. But for our next step, we need to trace. So we're not at marker yet. We are going to trace our skeleton. We're at tracing our skeleton right now, and then we're going to erase. So, it's pretty thick, okay? I don't want you tracing as close as you can. You are not tracing really close. Like that is too close. You're going to make your skeleton too skinny, okay? Think chunky. Give him some meat. Give him some organs, okay? So start about right here, about a centimeter away. And you're going to go ahead and think round. You're going to stay pretty far away from that skeleton. Okay? Even right here might be a little too skinny. And the C might have gone too skinny right there. So you want at least an eraser. Your eraser should be able to fit in between the lines you made. If your eraser can't fit, then you probably made the lines too close to the skeleton. So a good rule of thumb is see if your pencil can fit in between, and it looks like my pencil can fit in between, so I'm good. So you're just going to go ahead and trace all the way around. Go ahead and trace all the way around, leaving enough room that your pencil can fit in between. So I'm going to check. Can I fit my pencil? Yes. Can I fit my pencil? Yeah. Okay. So that's something like this. And our next step is to erase the internal skeleton. So we need something that kind of looks like a gingerbread man or something like that. Okay, so we're getting rid of that skeleton. We also want to get rid of the circle at the bottom of the head, because we want the head to be connected to the body, one shape. So I'm going to go ahead and start erasing the whole skeleton. You can even soften up these lines if you like, kind of softly erase the outer line, just enough so you can still see it. And you should have something that kind of looks like this. Make sure to brush off all of your eraser shavings. Always hold up your artwork from shoulder length so you can always pick up your paper, look at it from far away, see if you need to make any adjustments. Turn it upside down, make sure you're not missing anything. Looking at your artwork at different directions and different angles will help you see things you might not have seen before. So our next step is to use a black marker or a Sharpie. Either works. I feel like the Crayola markers work a little bit better for when we do the dashes, and you can get a thicker line with it. But I was told that some of you guys don't have this kind of tip on your marker. But I'm going to use this one and show you the technique anyway for it. And we're going to start with just outlining the frame. Okay, that's our first thing we're going to do is the frame. So you can start at any corner, and you can go ahead and use the side of your marker. So I think I showed you guys this before. If you hold your Sharpie or marker straight up and down, you get nice little thin lines. If you rest your hand, and your hand is resting on your desk, then you will get some thicker lines. So we're going to try to do that. Now if you have a marker that kind of looks like this, so this is your marker tip. My marker tip looks more like that, okay? So if you have a marker that looks like this, you're going to try to use this side of the marker. So you might have to hold it straight up and down, because I was told that some of you guys are using these kind of markers, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. But practice on your practice sheet and kind of make different lines and see which angle gives you a thick and what angle gives you a thin line if you have a marker that doesn't look like Miss C's marker. Okay? So if you have a marker like this, just use your practice sheet and experiment and see what angle will give you what kind of line. And if you have a Sharpie, then just use your Sharpie. A pro tip is, instead of moving your hand all the way up here and tracing, you can always just move your paper instead of your hand. There's a cool video I saw about Disney illustrators and how Disney illustrators' desks had a rotating circle. And basically what you would do is you would tape what you're drawing onto the rotating circle. And instead of moving your page, you can just move that circle. And that's how they would do perfect circles, actually, is by keeping the pen in one place and just moving that rotating circle around. I'll have to find the video and show you guys sometime. Okay, so we all should have our frame traced. And now we have to trace and outline our stick figure. And the thing I like about Keith Haring is that he just did stick figures. Everyone can do a stick figure, but he stylized it and he made it his own, and that's why he's a popular artist. We are going to start. I want to make sure, so everyone have your ears on. We are not separating this circle from the neck, okay? I don't want to see any black lines right here, okay? It's not a separate circle. It's not a separate shape. It's connected. So we're going to start tracing from the side and down like this, okay, guys? Because we do not want to accidentally separate the head right here, okay? It's connected. So we can even do it on this side too. Make sure we're not putting a line separating the circle from the neck. And then you can go ahead and trace it. Keith Haring is kind of a cool artist because he kind of started from rags to riches. He started off as a street artist, which is another way of saying a graffiti artist, in the 80s. And then Andy Warhol discovered him. And Andy Warhol is another artist we'll probably learn about later on in the year. I just haven't figured out how I want to portray him. And he kind of got Keith Haring into like galleries, and then that's when Keith Haring's style became more refined. And refined means more polished or pretty. Because before, when he was doing it in the subway, he'd have to do it really fast. So Keith Haring's stick figures, the heads might not have been perfectly round. And that's totally fine, because I doubt ours are going to be perfectly round, because we are not Keith Haring, and we haven't drawn this 100 million times. If you want to get good at your style, you just have to keep drawing the same thing every day. And that's how you develop your style. And I like copying other people's style because then you kind of learn a lot. So it's not a bad thing to kind of copy Keith Haring's style. Because then you can make it your own. What we're missing is the horizon line. The way I like to think of horizon lines, it starts with an H, and so does horizontal. So our horizon line is always horizontal. And we need to add those fun yellow the fun dashes too. So we can start either somewhere up here by his waist, or we can come here to where his knees are. So you get to decide if you want to put your horizon line up here, or if you want to bring it down here. And I kind of like showing depth, so I'm going to do mine here. I'm going to start on one side, and I'm going to get to that and stop. And then I hop on over, and I continue that line and stop. And I hop on over, and I finish that line. If you have a hard time with stopping and starting and stopping and skipping lines, you can always use your pencil. Draw the whole thing all the way across, and then erase anything that's inside of your stick figure. Okay. After you have that horizon line, think of like the bricks we did with the large-eyed cat. It's kind of the same pattern, where you make these lines, and then your second set of lines are underneath, so they're kind of like skipping. Just like how we drew the bricks. Okay. Once you're done outlining everything and you have your dashes, we need to add our movement lines. And like I said when we were talking about emotions, Margaret Keane, who did The Big-Eyed Children, she showed expression and emotion through facial features, but Keith Haring doesn't do that. We're not giving it a smiley face. We're not giving it a frowny face, okay? We're showing emotion and expression through body language, okay? So we know this character is dancing because of the body language, okay? He's waving up his hands and waving them like they don't care. So wherever there's a joint, you're going to do one long curved line and then one smaller curved line. And that's how we're going to do our motions. And that's how Keith Haring showed his emotion lines too. So I'm going to zoom in and kind of show you what I mean. So we're just going to find a joint. So here's a joint, here's a joint. And you're just going to do a long curved line and then a shorter curved line. And then you can come here, do a long curved line and a shorter curved line. You can even do it on his chest right here, showing motion. Maybe on his head, maybe he's moving his head back and forth. Anywhere you see a joint. Okay, so add some of those, and then we're going to be ready to color in our stick figure. I think we're going to start with the floor, and it's going to be yellow, and I'm going to show you how to not get your yellow all muddy. Hopefully, if you do have a marker that's more of an edge, you've practiced on your warm-up page, getting used to that tool. And we're going to go ahead and just outline with yellow. So I'll demonstrate. If we can have all eyes up on the screen, wherever you are, I just need you to watch real fast. If you start coloring like this, you're going to blend the black onto your marker, and you're going to get your marker all dirty. And you're going to make your artwork muddy. So instead, you're just going to trace around all of the black. Trace around the black. This takes concentration and skill. Sometimes when I do tedious artwork like this, I like to listen to music. Kind of helps you focus. Trace around all of this. And then you can go ahead and color it in. And then you have a lower chance of accidentally getting the black smeared or smudged or on your marker tip of your marker. So outlining first is probably the best, especially with yellow and lighter marker colors, okay? And you don't have to get every little single piece of white paper, okay? It's not necessary. You can go ahead and trace that foot, trace any of those black dashed lines, and that will help you preserve your marker and make your artwork less muddy. After we're done with the yellow, we're going to kind of mimic those meditative lines like our very first art lesson we did, that abstract art lesson we did, where we did meditative lines. And we're going to kind of mimic that when we get to outlining and coloring in the rest of our artwork. Notice I'm outlining everything first. Then I'm going to come in and color. It makes it a lot easier, so you don't get everything mixed. And don't worry if there's a little bit of white showing. It's not a big deal. Okay. Now you have to decide what color you will like your stick figure to be. I've seen students just keep it white and do the background like red or orange or blue or purple. But whatever color you choose has to be the opposite of your background color. So if you chose orange for your background color, you're not going to choose orange for your stick figure color. Okay? If you chose purple, you're not going to use purple for your background color. You're going to choose a different color. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and grab my red. I think I'm going to make my stick figure red. It's a very common color that Keith Haring would pick. But you don't have to choose red. You can choose purple, blue, any color. And what I recommend is not coloring in like this. There's a way to make markers look cheap, make your artwork look cheap, and that's one way, okay? What you're going to do is find what edge makes a thick line. So find what edge makes a thick line. If you're using a marker that looks like the opposite of Miss C's, then you're going to use this flat side, and you're probably going to hold yours straight up and down. But if you have one that looks like Miss C's, then you're just going to go ahead and rest your hand and color in everything with broad strokes like this. It's very similar to when we did the oil pastels and we did the meditative lines, okay? This is meditative, this is chaotic. You want something like this to cover as much of the white paper as possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the side of my marker, and I'm coloring in and tracing my stick figure. This looks better than this, okay? If I go like this, it's not going to look as nice. So we're going to do meditative lines, do the thick lines. And you're only going to go over once, because if you go over 2 or 3 times with a marker, it makes the paper wet, and then it's prone to ripping or putting holes in your artwork. So you don't want that. We have to be conscious, and we have to be thoughtful about the lines we're making, okay? So I'm going to show you a technique. You go with however you make a nice thick line, and then you just get right next to it and you do another thick line. And another one. Just like those meditative lines we did with our abstract art. It covers more of the page. It's more relaxing. I told the other class that they could put on Miles Davis, and the reason I chose Miles Davis was because that's what played at Luna Luna. There's a lot of Miles Davis songs, and he's kind of like a jazz artist. Does anyone remember where Luna Luna took place? Was it in America? No, it was in Germany. And it lasted for 7 weeks. And Drake the rapper was the one who purchased all of the shipping containers. So if anyone's a fan of Drake, just coming around and seeing if I missed any lines that might be showing a little bit of the white paper. Okay. And then you have to choose what color you want your background. And I kind of like the primary color look, so I'm probably going to choose blue. And you're going to do the same thing, using however you want for the thick lines. And you're kind of just going to come up and you're going to start at the corner. So if everyone can watch me for a quick second, so put your markers down and just watch Miss C. You can come back to your coloring in a bit. Basically, you're using whatever side gives you a thick line. And you're just going up and then following that line and going up. And it gives kind of a cool pattern also. Kind of gives this wavy pattern, which looks a lot better than doing this, okay? We're not doing that. That is not what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're doing controlled and thoughtful lines. And you can even trace around your figure. Oop, make sure it doesn't bleed into it. Make sure it doesn't bleed like that. And C was trying to look at her computer screen. And I feel like this is more fun than just scribbling. So you can go ahead and pick your marker back up and start coloring. I think you kind of get the idea. Kind of like those meditative lines we did with the oil pastels. This time is called studio time. And you're just focused on your work, not talking to your friends. Focusing on coloring. If the teachers want to play that clip from Luna Luna, they can. It's shared with them in the little chat box here. Has some cool information about Keith Haring. you're having a hard time making those thick lines, go ahead and practice on a different piece of paper. Practice on your warm-up paper. The reason we're doing these kind of lines is it looks nicer, covers more of the paper, and it also doesn't saturate or make your paper too wet, and you accidentally rip or put a hole in your artwork. Don't give up if it's hard for you to get that thick line with the marker. Just keep practicing. This is your first time doing this technique with a marker. And if you don't have the same marker as Miss C, it might be a little bit different, but that's okay. I wanted to talk about Basquiat, who's another artist I saw at Luna Luna, who's friends with Keith Haring, but I didn't really have enough time to talk about both artists, so I want to give them justice on each of their style. But Basquiat was also a street artist, so he also did things on streets and graffiti kind of artwork. And they were right next to each other in Luna Luna, so it was kind of cool seeing the two different types of street artists and their style. Don't forget to sign your artwork.